Welcome to the USC channel here at the Voice of College Football. USC Primetime Live, presented by FanDuel. Matt Zemek with Ethan Inman and Crashlet Collier. Whoo boy, juicy stories for the middle of January. Transfer portal's part of it, but really big news across the sport today. And one big thing, the coaches, college football coaches voted to increase the number of games you can play players without burning a red shirt from 4 to 9. And boy, wouldn't that have been great for Lincoln Riley this season? Could have played Husan Longstreet in 9 games instead of 4, still preserve that red shirt. And of course, again, Riley should have given Longstreet more run within the 4 games that he played in. It was just so dumb to play him 1 or 2 plays in a couple games. Why? What's the point? You need to be giving him at least like 8 to 10 plays in a game to make it somewhat worth his while, worth his time. That was just such a waste. But gosh, this came 1 year too late. Or did it? Because maybe Husan Longstreet's going to come back to USC. He's going to reconsider his decision for reasons that Ethan Inman has articulated in recent columns at Trojans Wire. So Ethan, you've written a lot about Husan Longstreet, but then you also have this 4 to 9 game. Like, this is a bombshell. This is seismic. Talk about the 4 to 9 vote. Now, this hasn't become official policy for next season, but like, if the coaches vote for it, like, are they? It probably means it's going to go through, I would say. So talk about the 4 to 9, that the implications there, and also on the other side, Husan Longstreet. He's not going to LSU. He's not going to these big ticket programs. Maybe he's going to reconsider. Walk us through some of what you've been thinking about and writing about.
Yeah, absolutely. So the 4 to 9 game thing is really interesting. I think it comes at a bad time for USC in the Husan Longstreet situation, but I think generally it comes at a good time for USC in terms of the 2026 recruiting class, because it gives you a good amount of flexibility with that incoming class. It gives you the kind of ability to see these players play a little bit more and still preserve their future in your program. So that, I think, is good in terms of the timing. Obviously Husan Longstreet is kind of the casualty to this, but yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I think I've seen mixed reactions online today. I've seen some people who say that they should just move it to 5 seasons straight up, and and kind of stop playing around with redshirt rules, and then like you get an additional medical redshirt, so up to 6 years or something like that. And then there's some people who are in favor. I think it'll be good for a lot of programs and good for a lot of young players. And I think USC is one of those programs with a lot of young players coming in next year. In terms of Husan Longstreet, I think, yeah, I mean the quarterback situations at a lot of schools have kind of resolved all around him. He's in a bit of a tougher situation than he was in before, but I think that the options that are still open for him. I put out a poll today on our channel at the Voice of College Football. We've got a good handful of responses. 41% of people said that they think he's going to go to a Group of 5 school. So if that's ultimately the path that Malachi Nelson took, which is why I wouldn't be too excited about it for him. But if he wants to go and start somewhere, that seems like the best option, to be honest. But then, I think LSU is still an option. I think, it would kind of be a lateral move. He would just essentially be backing up Sam Levitt, it seems. But they do still need a backup quarterback there in Baton Rouge, so it's not entirely off the table. And then, like, in terms of big programs left that he could possibly consider, I think it's kind of down to Miami or Tennessee. Miami obviously still not really having a quarterback because they, Carson Beck is moving on. They haven't signed anybody outside of him. And then Tennessee kind of lost out on the Sam Levitt sweepstakes, tried to make him a big offer even after he committed to LSU, and it seems like that didn't make any difference in the matter. So I don't know. I think while I would like him to consider coming back, and I think, like I said, like he's probably going to make at best a lateral move at this point, so I would really want him to consider it pretty heavily. I think kind of the length of time that he took to make the decision really suggests to me that he's probably not going to come back, even though it's probably the best option for him. I think that, USC sort of had their opportunity to kind of lure him back and, it seems like he kind of considered all of his possible options before, and kind of risked this exact thing happening, which is the quarterback landscape filling up around him to kind of really weigh this decision for a long time. So if he took that long and still kind of came to the conclusion that he should leave, I have a feeling that's probably what he's going to stick with. But like I said, it is interesting to see, like, it feels like he's going to make a lateral move at best at this point, and that's not what I really want to see from him. Like, if he's going to leave, which I wanted him to stay, I would have wanted him to go on and have some great success, but it doesn't look like he has a path to at least immediate success here at this point.
Absolutely.
All right, Crash.
For sure, Matt. So I'll start with just kind of the hearing about just obviously my reactions to all the FBS coaches voting unanimously to expanding the redshirt rules to 9 years. At that point, why not just do the whole year? But what kind of fascinates me is, how is this decision going to then implicate across the entire sport, across just the entire NCAA? Will it translate to other sports? I've heard coaches in other sports complain that, why does football get 4 games and not all the other sports you don't get to play any games? Like, I'm curious more just in a broader picture of what's going to happen. So even though I know it's not exactly football there, I just wanted to just bring that up. That's immediately where my mind went, especially since I've covered a lot of other college sports. But then I think it'll definitely be interesting. But with football, they should just do 5 years. Like, why not just do 5 years? I've heard Lincoln Riley, other coaches have just said at this point, it's just like, that just doesn't allow guys to have to, figure out like, oh, what's best for me? Like, I ought to put my own success, my own well-being and career ahead of the team. Like, you don't want to see, it's unfair to make guys make that decision. But at the end of the day, guys got to make the best decisions for themselves. So why not just make it 5 years? And then that way you just get rid of that whole problem altogether. And then as for
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Crash. Go ahead and finish. I was just going to jump in after you were done.
I was just going to say, now going on to Hassan Longstreet, I think obviously that timing definitely hurts him because, like you were saying, Matt, like if he could have played a bit more, maybe that does get him to stay. But I think this is going to be a really interesting thing that I think for Longstreet, I know, like, I'm sure we've all talked with people or texted. We've got friends who were pretty high on Longstreet from pretty much the moment he signed and came in, where they're like, they saw one snap, like, he's the guy. He should be starting. Like, get Hassan in there. Like, screw Mayava. I get their passion, and I think Longstreet, very much could have been the quarterback of the future. But Lincoln Riley is not in a position to play for the future. He needs to play for the present, because I made this point on behind the caution tape yesterday that Lincoln Riley is coaching for his job this year. And he's got to go with the quarterback that is going to give him the best shot to make the college football playoff next year. Like, it is year 5 or bust, college football playoff or bust for Lincoln Riley. So he's got to go with the guy who's proven that he can pull the job off. And that guy is Jade Mayava. I think Longstreet, if he sits for another year, develops, like we talked about last week, if he, could have been a little more patient, he'd probably be fully ready to assume the reins and then take over for Mayava and just really get another year to develop, especially when he can hopefully get used more in the blowouts of later games, or even just utilized a bit. Hopefully would have been utilized a bit more smartly for longer periods of time and just more creatively this year. So I think that it really, because of that, it's just like, he's like, yeah, all right, they're going with Mayava, I'm out of here. But then it's also interesting that he took his time and wasn't as proactive because, like you said, Ethan, like most of the top quarterback jobs are gone. So unless he's thinking, oh, maybe I have a better chance to develop under another coach in a different offensive system, then maybe that's what his move was. But if he was trying to hope to get a start job and really get schools to try to court him, he probably should have considered jumping in the portal the moment USC announced that Jade Mayava had re-signed.
So I just wanted to jump in quickly on something, Crash, because what you were saying brought up something interesting in my mind, which is that in the era of NIL, redshirting players can get paid a lot of money to sit on the bench. And so it almost makes a lot of sense if you're a young player who, is really talented, but not necessarily ready to play at the college level, like a 4-star, 5-star type of player, that you would go to USC take the red shirt, sit on the bench, get paid, and then go somewhere else. Like it's almost, I think the 4-game red shirt almost uniquely disadvantages USC in the sense that like if you're, and I don't think that there are many college football players that are like this, but if you're a college football player who's looking to kind of skirt by for a season, USC is kind of the best place to do it because, like I said, you're probably going to get paid a lot. USC's got a lot of NIL, a lot of resources. And like, if your intention is just to kind of play your 4 games and then shut down for the season, like that's kind of where it is. So I guess the 9 games allows coaches to kind of get a little bit more out of their players, not just allow them to kind of totally tune out and shut it down. It's not going to completely stop them because, I mean, you obviously have situations like Bear Alexander a couple years ago where he just kind of checked out and gave up. And, regardless of if USC could have played him another 9 games, I don't think he was willing to do so. But the 9 games does kind of like, we're sitting here in Hassan Longstreet in this situation where it was just like, man, like outside of the 2 games where he played in garbage time, we really got 3 plays and 2 carries out of Hassan Longstreet's, entire USC career. That really sucks. So yeah, really interesting. And then there was a comment from Social Studies guy. Thank the Lord the backup punter can throw the ball. Just wanted to quickly point out that Sam Hewer does have more eligibility and likely will return to USC in 2026, which was nobody really expected that. Everyone kind of thought he was a redshirt senior because he did played at so many other places for so many years. But apparently he got a waiver at another school, so he could come back. It's not been officially announced, but I don't know why he would go anywhere else. I mean, his uncle's the quarterback coach. So yes, we will have our backup punter that can throw the ball a little bit in our quarterback room for 2026, it sounds like. So we may not even need to get another quarterback in the portal because with him and Jonas Williams, we do have 3 scholarship quarterbacks on the roster.
So just to offer one basic comment on, and again, I'm not assuming that 9 games is going to be, become actual policy. John Goldfarb said they voted for 9 and maybe they're hoping for 6, something in the middle. That could certainly be true. But let's deal with the hypothetical that 9 games is allowed. It becomes the rule, the new policy. This becomes very simple for coaches, right? You're going to play your guy with 9 games. You're going to play him in like 8 of your 9 conference games. Like you're going to sit him against maybe Purdue, and then you play him in the in like the 2 cupcakes, and you rest him for the big non-conference game that you play. You let your QB1 handle that game. So like that's the roadmap. 2 cupcakes and then like the easiest conference game. That is the roadmap for playing 9 games in a season. So this really would transform the math and what's attainable for coaches in each season. All right, now in terms of another quarterback in waiting situation, and it's not a guaranteed situation, but let's talk about the Oregon quarterback room, because you could have a situation where Dylan Raiola backs up Dante Moore. He sits, or he's the backup in 2026. He waits his turn for 2027, or Dante Moore goes to the NFL draft and Dylan Raiola is your QB1 at Oregon in this coming season. So Ethan, then Crash. I mean, to me, obviously at USC, we like to see Oregon suffer. That certainly happened against Indiana. If Dylan Raiola is QB1 at Oregon, like, I am licking my chops, right? Or is it not that simple? Do you think Lanning can actually make it work if Dylan Raiola is his guy next year, not 2 years down the line?
That's an interesting question. I think, first of all, about that whole situation, I want to point out that if Dante Moore leaves, it could have implications for Hassan Longstreet because he could go compete with / backup Dylan Raiola at Oregon. He was tied to Oregon previously. So something to watch in that situation as well. That's like one of the few opportunities that he could have left. But if Dante Moore stays, I don't think there's any way Longstreet goes, because going to be the 3rd string quarterback somewhere after being the backup somewhere would just be ridiculous.
Just want to step in here. Hassan Longstreet going to Oregon and lighting it up, like that would just bring the house down at USC. Like, Trojan fans would just go absolutely insane if that happened.
Yeah, it would be really unfortunate. But here's the thing, though, is like our Big Ten schedule next year is a lot of playing guys that are like very familiar nemesises for us. Like we have to go play Matt Campbell and Danton Lynn both at Penn State. That's ridiculous. And there's a lot more of that I've detailed throughout the offseason on the schedule next year. It's quite something. Lincoln Riley can't escape. I mean, Kyle Whittingham at Michigan, like it's loaded with villains next year. So, you know, we can't exactly escape our past demons next year. It's in a year of reckoning for Lincoln Riley. It's the greater college football world, the college football gods, whatever you want to call it. They're truly pulling out all the stops to you know, make it tough on him, I guess. But anyway, Dylan Raiola, I think, you know, on paper, yes. I mean, USC's beaten Dylan Raiola twice. He's been sort of a disappointment ever since he went to Nebraska. You know, as someone who follows Nebraska somewhat closely, I know this. I think, though, it becomes the question of like how much was that Dylan Raiola being bad and how much of that was his coaching situation not being very good, because Matt Rule and Dana Holgorsen weren't exactly fantastic, and I don't think that any Husker fan would say that they were. So I don't know. I think, you know, Will Stein being gone certainly throws a wrench in things for Oregon. Dan Lanning's obviously a defensive coach. So, you know, it's not like Oregon has some sort of offensive staff in place that I feel fantastic about. But I just think that, you know, Oregon having as talented of a roster as they have, they'll surround Dylan Raiola with plenty of talent. I think that there's no question in my mind that he'll be much better at Oregon than he was at Nebraska. It's just a question of like, you know, will he be better enough to beat USC? And to that, I don't know. But I do think that if like Dante Moore being gone increases USC's chances of winning that game by a lot. I will say that.
I'm certainly curious in how this plays out, especially when you factor in that Will Stein, like you said, Ethan, is now fully off to Kentucky as their new head coach. And I think what's going to be interesting, especially like you pointed out, if this was like if Lane Kiffin was the coach of Oregon, just bear with me, or if just Raiola had gone somewhere the head coach was an offensive mind, regardless of what the coordinator situation looked like, you could say, okay, like, you know what, this you can see it, you make sense because that's that head coach's area of expertise. But with Lanning, I think it's interesting because we don't really know exactly what Drew Maringer is going to do and how he's going to call plays. So I'm very interested to see that. I think if Dante Moore ends up staying, then it's going to give Raiola time to, you know, really, I think, develop more and back up. But then I know it's not what you're really asking, Matt. I think you're asking about this year. I think it really just depends on how Maringer does this year. And I think if he has more, I think it's a bit more worrisome because then Raiola learns everything. But if it's next year, I think it's going to be a little bit trickier for Oregon, I think. But we'll definitely see. I mean, Dan Lanning, though, has managed to consistently, I'd say, hire good offense coordinators. He had Kenny Dillingham leave for ASU, grabs Will Stein from UTSA. Granted, though, there was continuity at the quarterback with Bo Nix both those years. And then obviously then they've kind of had a bit of a revolving door of quarterbacks with Nix, then Dylan Gabriel, now Dante Moore. And then the question now hinges, does Moore stay or does he go, and does Raiola immediately assume the starting role? So it's going to be, I think, a very interesting QB/OC situation to follow up there in Eugene.
I just want to jump in again real quick. Sorry, Matt. Just super quick notes on something Crash said and then something that was in the chat. So first of all, I think that this is a good move for Raiola. Like that's the one thing that I will stick to as like, this seems to me like a smart move for him, because I think that like him being, it was kind of a mess in Nebraska. I think that the program was kind of put on his shoulders. And I think that he now gets to go and learn. And, you know, like, I think for a guy who like transferred to 4 different high schools in 4 years and is now transferring out after a second year of college, like to have the humility to say like, hey, I'm willing to be the backup here. I'm willing to sit and learn. Like, this is just, it seems like he really just approached it as the situation he felt was best for him and not just the situation where he felt like he could succeed immediately. So that's, I think ultimately it will turn out well for him. I just hope not well enough for him that he beats USC next season. And then just quickly, LSU already signed a backup quarterback. LSU does have a backup rostered. They signed Elon transfer Landon Clark. I don't think that necessarily means that that Landon Clark is going to be the QB2. I think that if they signed Hassan Longstreet, that Hassan Longstreet would probably be in a battle with Landon Clark for the backup quarterback position. And LSU does still need a third quarterback. So that's why Longstreet to LSU is still a potential option.
All right, quick follow-up on this. Just the question of, should Dante Moore go to the NFL draft? Should he go to the 2026 NFL draft? And I'm going to say right off the top, no. But I hope so, because that means Dylan Raiola is QB1 for Oregon. But I don't think you should. We saw this against Indiana. He wasn't good. He wasn't ready. And he didn't even play well against Texas Tech, right? He was sloppy in each of these games. He made some amateur hour type decisions. And, my friends at Duckswire, great people, great writers. They're smart. They're informed. They do an absolutely fantastic job. But I said, middle of the season, during the Iowa game, is Dante Moore really all that good? He has moments, but he did not put together consistent games regularly. He did not have anything close to a dominant season. He's not ready. What do you think, Ethan and Crash?
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't even think that Dante Moore played better than Jaden Maiava in the USC Oregon game.
Yes. And let me just say, Oregon might be in the title game with Jaden Maiava. I'm going to put it out right there right now.
Yep. I think that Jaden Maiava is clearly a better quarterback than Dante Moore. But even if you want to say that he won his team that game better because he was a better game manager, whatever, he's not more talented. It's clear as day to me. I think the one wrinkle in this whole situation, though, where I agree in terms of his personal development, absolutely not, should stay at Oregon, should develop another year. But this quarterback class sucks. It's terrible.
Yep.
So he could enter the draft right now and go probably in the top 10 picks, even though he doesn't look like he's ready, just because the quarterback class is so bad. ESPN right now has him going second overall after Fernando Mendoza at number 1. So, which again, Fernando Mendoza, I think, isn't even necessarily a bona fide great prospect. Kind of ridiculous, but
just so people wonder what I'm doing, I think that's a reach.
Yeah.
That's a real reach.
Absolutely.
Dante Moore top 10. That is a reach.
Hey, I would agree with you, but there's so many quarterback needy teams in the NFL, and there's just so little quarterback talent this year. So, does he really have that much more upward mobility in terms of where he's drafted if he stays? I think if he stays, it's about what he still wants to accomplish at the college level. So I think it's on Dan Lanning to say hey, we think you can be the quarterback that wins us a national title. But if he's already going to get picked in the top 10 picks, why wait is kind of the other side to that.
He's going to get top 10 money. Wow. That is like me finding a roll of unmarked $1,000 bills on the curbside.
I guess my one question is, assuming what happened last year, Shedeur Sanders is my big question is Mel Kiper looking for a second straight year of embarrassment on draft night?
That was something else.
Because here's the thing, we're talking about these quarterbacks, and I'm nothing against how Mendoza, Moore, anyone else who's being talked about as a top prospect, but those NFL, and obviously, you know what? I'm not saying the hype they're getting isn't warranted. I think some of it, I think a lot of it is but you got to think those NFL scouts, their job is to take the emotion out of it and just look at the players for who they really are. So I think that's really going to be something. That's why Shedeur Sanders slid all the way into the 5th round, despite being a top 10 pick, was because the NFL scouts looked all right, yeah, tough kid, plays well, but you know what? He's not at the talent of of Cam Ward or some of those other QBs who went in the 1st round. And not to mention, he's got the baggage, the Deion baggage. And do we want everyone to be thinking, is Deion Sanders taking over our program next year? No. So that's what I'm wondering. And I think for that reason, I think we'll really see where exactly he goes and if he even decides to stay for that reason, especially as he starts to probably start conversing with NFL representatives about where they're probably seeing him going. So I think he probably should. I think he should stay too, especially because while I think he took an interesting and honestly smart path, I think going to UCLA, I think was actually smart for him because then he learned where he was at. Then he takes a year to back up Dylan Gabriel at Oregon and gets to really develop. Then actually gets a year of really being the true starter. He gets to be the guy. But I think this year, if he stays, which, I mean, well, as a USC fan, I hope he doesn't. But for his own personal development, I hope he does. I think this next year, if he stays, he can really have an opportunity to really turn himself into one of the best players in the country. And I think he maybe, that doesn't happen if he goes early, especially if Mel Kiper is embarrassingly off again, which, because it's Mel Kiper, would be absolutely hilarious. And I would pay top dollar to watch it.
We will see if we get another NFL draft drama extraordinaire on par with Shadur last year. That was extraordinary television. So we'll see what's in store this year. All right, so USC Primetime Live, the USC channel here at the Voice of College Football is presented by FanDuel. So let's talk some odds. Indiana, now 8.5. Opened 7.5. It's now 8.5. 340 money line. Miami, you can get a fat plus 275 on the money line. Over-under opened at 47.5. I saw it bet up to 48.5 at FanDuel. Now back down to 47.5. Gentlemen, your picks. What do you think of these odds? What do you think of the game? Ethan, then Crash.
I think they look about right to me. I think that, Indiana should be treated as a pretty clear favorite in this game. I saw, I don't remember who said it, but I saw someone who's a famous college football commentator say something like, well, if Miami gets 4 quarters of how Carson Beck played in the fourth quarter of the semifinals, then maybe Miami has a chance. And I was like, that's the thing is Carson Beck doesn't play like he did in the fourth quarter ever. Carson Beck is a solid but not spectacular quarterback. Miami had a couple of losses earlier this year in which he played terrible. I just don't trust him to, especially against such a disciplined team like Miami like Indiana, to bring the heat. So, I think Indiana should be favored by a pretty big margin. I think 8.5 is about right. I would expect them to win by over a touchdown. It seems pretty straightforward to me on this one.
I agree. It's about right. I think it could maybe be a little bit higher. I think Indiana is going to cover in this game. And I think it's also, you talked to Ethan, you just said the big word there, discipline. The Hoosiers play with a ton of discipline. Then I just also want to mention, it's just Kurt Cignetti's whole philosophy is we are playing for 4 quarters, just utmost violence for just 60 minutes straight. Like, no matter how far up or down we are, like, we're not taking anybody out. We're take no prisoners. We're just going to beat up on you constantly until this thing is over. Like, that's clearly been their mentality. And I think for those reasons, I think the Hoosiers are going to win because they just stay disciplined the entire time. And I think the best evidence of it was that, obviously the dismantling of Oregon, but even just since I was there at the Rose Bowl on January 1st, just seeing even after pretty much until that game was pretty much over, like all the starters were in it, including Fernando Mendoza. So just like how they played there just that whole time, I think speaks a lot to how they're going to play against Miami and why Kurt Cignetti is going to be hoisting up that natty and doing his typical Hoosiers chant.
So this is really interesting because for a lot of reasons. One is that I think Miami has the best talent, in terms of NFL draft representation, guys who are going to have great careers on Sundays, like Ruben Bain, Messidor, Fletcher. Miami has dudes, but Indiana is by far the best coach team. So most talented team against the best coach team. That's fascinating. But the other really big point of intrigue is this is a Miami home game. It's the way things wound up. And this raises a big point that I think that, a lot of coaches and a lot of fans think the first 2 rounds of the playoff, should be on campus sites, and then the last 2 rounds at neutral sites. I think it should be exactly the inverse. I think the first 2 rounds should be neutral sites in bowl games, and then the last 2 rounds should be on campus. I think Indiana should be hosting this game instead of Miami hosting this game. So if you have on-campus sites for the semifinals and final, like, you reward the higher seeds for getting to the final 2 rounds to the title game, and you take the guesswork out of, well, maybe because Miami is just, had the Plinko chips kind of fall its way. Oh, it gets to the title game and it happens to be at home. No, like, Indiana should host. But here's the other thing. If you have a system where the first 2 rounds are at neutral sites and the semifinals and final are on campus sites, you can save the bowl system that way. I wrote at College Sports Wire, not Trojans Wire, but I also write for College Sports Wire, also part of the Gannett USA Today network, that you could have like the, and I think we're going to be moving to 16 teams pretty soon. Maybe this upcoming season, maybe 2027, but it's coming soon. If you have 16 teams, that means you have 8 first-round games instead of just 4, and then you have 4 quarterfinals. So that would be 12 games. The first-round games, the 8 first-round games could be bowl games, and it could be the second-tier bowl games. Imagine this, folks. You could have the Alamo, the Holiday, the Sun, the Gator, the Citrus, the ReliaQuest, formerly Outback, the Liberty Bowl, like these great traditional bowl games that used to be really big deals in the 1980s and early 1990s. They suddenly become huge again. You could do that if the first round is shoehorned into the bowl system. And then the second round would be 4 of the top 6 traditional bowl games. You'd have like the Rose, the Sugar, the Orange, the Cotton. And actually, the 2 of the other top 6 bowl games would be first round. But you have like 6 of those, long-standing December bowl games, like the Alamo, the Holiday, the Liberty, the Gator, and then add in the Citrus, and then have like 2 of the top 6, so maybe like the Fiesta and Peach, whatever. And then the quarterfinals can be Rose, Sugar, Orange, and Cotton. And so that way, you're making a lot of bowl games far more relevant than they used to be. So you achieve that goal of saving the bowl system, and then you go to the semis and final for on-campus sites. You reward the higher seeds for advancing that far in the bracket. So a lot to consider there. In terms of the 8.5 with Indiana, Miami's injury report is what I'm going to be looking at. So I'm holding off on a spread bet there. I need to see how many of Miami's defensive players who got injured in the Fiesta Bowl against Ole Miss are actually going to be able to play, and if the expectation is that they're going to be reasonably effective. So I'm going to withhold the spread bet. I'm going to give Indiana the lean just because Fernando Mendoza is more likely than Carson Beck to play a clean game. Carson Beck more likely to make the big mistake. Now, Mendoza fumbled twice against Oregon. Indiana got back those 2 fumbles. So Mendoza's not mistake-proof. And remember, he threw interceptions against Iowa, Oregon, and Penn State. He will make mistakes, but it's more likely that Carson Beck makes the big mistake than Mendoza. So for that reason, I would say that Indiana is more likely to win than not. But it's Miami home game, and if Mendoza throws a pick 6 in the first quarter, I might be inclined to think that Miami wins that game. All right, more odds at FanDuel because this is a really big week for USC football on the field. It's just not college football, it's pro football. So Ethan's San Francisco 49ers go to Seattle to play Sam Darnold. Seattle -7, and the -7 is juiced at -115. Seattle -350 on the money line. San Francisco +280. The over-under 44.5. No juiced. It's -110 over and under. And then you scroll down a little bit to the bottom. Rams Bears, Caleb Williams. So the Rams are 3.5-point favorites on the road next Sunday, and the -3.5 for the Rams is juiced to -118. Bears +3.5, you're getting -104, so nearly even money. Rams -205 on the money line, Bears +172 at home. on the money line. Over under 48.5. The over juiced to minus 118. The under at minus 104. Ethan, then Crash. What do you think of those odds, and make your picks for those games?
Well, my first kind of takeaway is that the over-under for the Niners-Seahawks game is crazy high after, the game that they just played a couple weeks ago. I think it was like Seahawks 13, Niners 3. So 16 combined points, and they're expecting these two teams to go in and put up 45. That's a lot, especially, with how these defenses have been playing, how the 49ers defense kind of rebounded in some of these later games after, giving up some big totals in the middle of the season due to all the injuries. And obviously how great Seattle's defense has been and how they just kind of completely stymied the Niners a couple weeks ago. So that to me is the thing that stands out the most. That's a pretty shockingly high over under to me. And I would probably lean pretty heavily under. But I could be wrong. Football's, unpredictable, and that's part of how these sports books make money, right? Is that it looks 13-3 makes you think, oh well, they put up only 16 points, surely they won't reach 45. But you never know. The sport's different every day. But I do think that I think that it's not going to be another game where the teams score a combined 16 points. I don't think Kyle Shanahan's going to go out having only scored 3 points. But again, you just never know. In terms of Rams Bears, I think that it would be really hard for me to bet against the Bears, just because of kind of the magic that they work in the second half. I wouldn't want to bet this game at all. I think that I would be really stressed out either way. Even if I took the Rams as the favorites, and they built up a 17, even like a 24 point lead at halftime, or in the third quarter or something like that. Like I would never feel comfortable until the final whistle. So that seems like a bet that would stress me out more than would be exciting and entertaining for me. But I'm certainly hoping that the underdogs both win in both of those games. That's what I'll say about that.
I think all three of these games are kind of really interesting. I think especially, obviously, 49ers, Seahawks, big division rivalry. I think just kind of one thing that I think could be kind of interesting to look at with all three of these games that are up on the screen is it's starting to get colder, and these games are in the place that is much colder for the home team compared to the visitor. And I'm not saying weather's a factor, but I think it's completely a factor, but you got to factor in a little bit. And I think that's something that's probably making me think that I'm honestly surprised, like with the Rams being the favorites. Like I'm sniffing, I think it's an upset. I think the Bears are going to upset the Rams, especially being at home at Soldier Field and just what they pulled off against the Packers last week or this past weekend. And then as for the Patriots, just how solid they looked against my Chargers. I am still very sad and upset about how painful that game was. And so, yeah, I think the Patriots are going to probably, cover there. And then I think as for Seahawks 49ers, I think that one could be pretty close. I think the Seahawks get the edge. I'm kind of favoring all the home teams in this one, in part because of the weather. But I could see either of these games kind of being not sure what to take on the over-under, just given just the nature of how some of these games have looked like. I feel like that's one I'm not exactly too comfortable on. So I feel like those ones, like whether the over under, like if I was going to bet, like I feel like I'd be like really just thinking really hard about anything. I think it's just a total toss up there, to be completely honest with you guys.
So I am, obviously, I'm the editor of Trojans Wire. I'm the editor of a USC blog. Like I really, really, really want Darnold versus Caleb for the NFC Championship. I want it badly. I haven't had a Final Four or a college football playoff in 5 years of editing Trojans Wire. Sports gods, you need to give me something, right? And, Kennedy Smith's been injured. USC's just losing. Women's basketball is losing these close games, just ripping my guts out. Thank God USC men's basketball beat Minnesota, to get on the right side of the bubble. But like sports gods, you need to help a brother out here. Like I'm dying. I'm dying on the vine here. I need Caleb versus Darnold. But I don't think it's going to happen because I think the Rams are clearly a better team than the Bears. And you got to think the Bears can't keep playing 45 bad minutes and then rescuing themselves in the fourth quarter. Like, this is insane. This is like, it's like that baseball team. I've seen it several times. Like, a team goes like 33-8 in one-run games, just rides that magic carpet ride one year. I think Ethan's San Francisco Giants did something like that when the Bochy years, that pixie dust, getting all the bounces to go their way.
Pitching and defense, Matt. Pitching and defense.
Pitching and defense, baby. Yes, but I mean, like, you're not going to win. Like, you're not going to be 25 games over 500 in one-run games every season. Like, that is 1 in a million. Like, it's gonna regress next year if the Bears, keep putting themselves in that position. So, the Bears have to start well. They have to start well. They cannot just keep digging themselves into a ditch. Like, how long can they keep getting away with this, right? You're not going to keep getting away with this. Not against the Rams, not against Matt Stafford, not against Sean McVay. The only reason that the Bears could win is that the Rams haven't been good. Rams have not been good since their choke against Seattle, against the Seahawks on that Thursday night game. They have really been ordinary. They almost lost to a mediocre Carolina team. They've been playing with their food so much. They trailed the Cardinals late in the third quarter of Week 18. The Cardinals are awful, but the Rams trailed. Like, the Rams have just been playing with their food for a month. And so I got to think the Rams are going to straighten out. But I hope I'm wrong. Because I want Caleb versus Darnold. I think the Seahawks are set up really well here. Ethan's a 49er fan, and I'm a Seahawk fan. My brother's a Seahawk fan. I lived in Seattle for 20 years. But I'll say this for Ethan. 49ers got screwed here. Why is this not a Sunday game? This absolutely should have been a Sunday game. Why are you giving the 49ers a short week? The Bears and the Rams both played on Saturday. That should be the Saturday game. So Ethan's 49ers got jobbed. See, I can be a man. I can be an adult. I want the Seahawks to shred the 49ers to pieces, but this is not fair to the 49ers. But now, just getting to the game, no Fred Warner, no Bosa, no George Kittle on the short week. Like, the Niners are not set up well to succeed in this game. Seattle's been able to get healthy. That's why the bye matters so much. It's hard to bet against Seattle in this game. I might take Seattle like -6.5. Maybe you don't get the same price as -7. I just, half a point, maybe a full point. That would be my pick there. But I am definitely going with the Rams money line, and I might get the Rams -2.5 for the adjusted price at FanDuel. Final note here. Trojans Wire writer Micah Huff has a story coming out later this week. Like, I've scheduled it, and he picked up on a tweet from a USC broadcaster, which said no USC quarterback has started the Super Bowl. That's pretty darn incredible. Carson Palmer made the NFC Championship game with the Arizona Cardinals a decade ago, lost to Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers. Pat Hayden played in multiple NFC Championship games with the Los Angeles Rams in the 1970s. So he made the NFC Championship game twice, lost to the Vikings once, and then he lost to the Cowboys in January of 1979. That was leading into Super Bowl 13 between the Cowboys and the Pittsburgh Steelers. So couple USC quarterbacks have gotten close. Mark Sanchez also got to the conference championship round. He made the AFC championship game with the Jets a couple times 15 years ago. Lost to Peyton Manning and the Colts. Lost to Ben Roethlisberger and the Steelers. So a few USC quarterbacks have gotten to the conference championship round, but not one has made the Super Bowl and started in the Super Bowl. And so the point is, if the Bears and the Seahawks win, that streak ends because one of the two will be guaranteed. Caleb Williams or Sam Darnold will be guaranteed to make the Super Bowl. So that's what's at stake this coming weekend. And so you can check out those lines at FanDuel, also the lines for the Indiana-Miami National Championship game. So as we return to our 3-screen panel. It's a big weekend of USC football just in the pros. Wish that the Trojans were in Miami preparing for a national championship game, maybe next year, maybe next season. But anyway, really pulling for Caleb Williams and Sam Darnold to get it done. I know Ethan's pulling for his 49ers. So, Sam Darnold can throw for 4 touchdowns, but, Brock Purdy finds Jawan Jennings, and it's 38-35 Niners.
That's or Jawan Jennings finds Brock Purdy. I'm okay with that, too.
That's right. So that's what Ethan's pulling for. But anyway, big weekend for Caleb Williams and Sam Darnold, and USC football fans are going to be watching. All right, so as we continue, USC transfer portal. Let's get the overview there. Nothing to report about defensive coordinator. Saw that in the chat. That is a strange and eerie silence with USC not having a defensive coordinator just yet. But so the transfer portal is the main thing. Talked about who's on Longstreet, but now we get to talk about everything else. So Ethan and Crash, your overall observations on the transfer portal for USC football.
I think the biggest news today is retention, actually, because Alani Noah's back, which is kind of a surprise. People thought that because he missed some bowl practices, he might be on his way out. But that gives USC all 5 of its starting offensive linemen returning next year. That's pretty incredible. Goes to show that, all the stuff that we've been saying about Zach Hansen is not just, a sunshine pumping him. He clearly has not only, had the results on the field, but his players clearly really like him and trust him with their development if all 5 of his starting offensive linemen are returning. So that's pretty incredible. Happy that Alani Noah is back. Wish all of those players the best. Really excited to watch them all compete for USC again next year. And then USC also announced today that Tamir Robinson has re-signed. A lot of people were hoping, when they kind of teased that they were announcing 2 re-signings, that it was going to be Alex Graham, who is still not seemingly decided whether he's returning or not. But so that's the situation there. The only other news that I can recall since we talked last week is kind of on the special team side of things. USC picked up a punter and a long snapper. I believe the long snapper is in his 8th year of college football. So got a real veteran there. And then Lachlan Kerrigan from Memphis. And he's about the same height as Sam Johnson. So maybe we'll see another Sam Heward fake punt pass next year. But yeah, so that's the only news I can think of. Really excited about Alani Noah. I feel like that's the main headline.
I absolutely agree with Ethan. Obviously, not too much in terms of exits this week, but I think getting Alani Noah, and like he said, we just keeping that core of that offensive line, all 5 starting offensive linemen is huge, especially because then they're going to trust each other more. They're going to be able to play better. So it's a huge win. And that's like Ethan said, it's like, we weren't just throwing praise, telling Zach Hansen to take a bow just because we want to. We said it because look at the dang results on the field. That man was working magic there. So for that reason, I'm really excited about this entire offensive line coming back. Then obviously I know there was a question about the DC search, what's going on there. I'm coming back to this just because Ethan and I are going to start talking about that starting tomorrow. We will be doing an 8 to 10 minute discussion about this here on the channel. So be sure to join us back here tomorrow to catch that. So I wanted to throw that out there. But yeah, I think like you were saying, just with everything, as there's news on that, we'll hit on it. But then just with everything going on with the team, I think it's really huge that, Alani Noah is coming back and that really USC's keeping a strong core around Jade Mayava, which goes back to my point earlier that is huge because it's going to allow Lincoln Riley to win at a level that's going to help him keep his job heading into 2027. Because as I said at the top of the show, Lincoln Riley is coaching for his job.
Yeah, so just want to piggyback on what Crash said, that we're going to be offering more news videos, more quick hit YouTube videos, and we're not talking about bonus cuts. We're talking about just free, readily available news videos for you. We're going to make a commitment to put out more of those for your enjoyment and edification. So we're offering you more on the free side, but then we would also point you to the bonus cuts, and we also just want to mention that at vocfb.com/shop, look at these snappy caps. Ethan has the camo cap that you see there. So, if you get a vocfb.com cap that, with the USC labeling, the proceeds go to the USC channel and to the Voice of College Football. And then also go to our USC at the Voice of College Football homepage on YouTube. Click that join button right there in the middle. Heisman tier, the Heisman 8 tier, that's the middle tier, the national champion tier, the top tier. You get the exclusive insider access to the bonus cuts and a 17-minute interview with Cody Kessler. We have a 15-minute freebie, but also a 17-minute one that's paywalled. That is for members. You get those extra bonus cuts on the USC YouTube channel here at the Voice of College Football. So those are ways you can support the channel. My observations on the portal, and this would not be the first time, right, for me to be bad cop, Debbie Downer, however you want to look at it. Cam Coleman goes to Texas. Like, I'm not seeing the big splashes. I'm not seeing home run hitting. I was kind of led to believe, USC football put out that message about wait till January 2026. I'm not sure it's really meeting the hype, right? I was led to believe this was supposed to be a bigger haul and there would be high-end studs. Like, where's the Jordan Addison, right? Where's your aircraft carrier type player? Forgive me. Again, Debbie Downer, bad cop, however you want to look at it. Should we be hugely impressed by this class? I am personally not. Ethan, Crash.
I'll add Coy Perrick to Oregon.
Yeah, really. That's the kind of guy we should be getting. Yep. Right?
One of the main recognizable guys in the portal, and, a position that USC honestly should be adding in. And they haven't added any safeties in the portal at all. And Coy Perrick goes to Oregon. So not only does he go elsewhere, but he goes to Oregon of all places. USC fans will remember well that he intercepted Miller Moss in the Minnesota game to end that game last year. And so he's apparently not done terrorizing us, unfortunately.
All right. Before I go to Crash, go ahead.
Yeah, no, sorry. I just had a couple quick thoughts. I think Jontez Williams is a big signing. I think it's not being kind of seen by the bigger college football world as a big signing because he was flashy last year.
Number one cornerback,
corner.
Yeah. But where is that on offense, right?
Yeah. I've seen a lot of people online arguing that Terrell Anderson is a better fit than Cam Coleman. I haven't watched a ton of either of their tapes, so I don't know where I fall in that argument. I think that it may be people coping, but because I think, Cam Coleman was originally supposed to visit USC, and then they signed Terrell Anderson, and then that kind of went away. So, maybe USC believes Terrell Anderson's better than Cam Coleman, and maybe that's where that USC's Terrell Anderson's a better fit for USC. Maybe that's where that kind of whole sentiment came out of. Sometimes you just have to take the obvious guy. I think there's a reason that some of the, especially transfers, remember.
Hold on, pardon me for interrupting you, but remember Derek Harmon from Michigan State? We talked about, not you and I, Tim Prangley and I talked about him when we did our show a year before you came aboard. But Derek Harmon of Michigan State, big portal guy. Is USC going to spend the money? No. And who got him? Oregon. And what did Oregon do with Derek Harmon? Went 13-0, won the Big Ten. Yes. Get the obvious guy. Yes.
Yeah, so sometimes that's just what it is. And especially in the portal, with recruits, Sam Heward is a former 5-star recruit. We all know about Malachi Nelson. 5 stars don't always pan out. But, Coy Perrick is a star. There's no denying that Coy Perrick is a star. And if he doesn't have a star year next year at Oregon, it's going to be because he gets hurt. That's the only way it doesn't happen. So, yeah, a little bit disappointing. I still like the Jontez Williams signing. The portal's not over. I hold out hope that we'll retain Alex Graham and get a couple more guys. But yeah, it's a little underwhelming so far. I'd agree.
Okay, before I get to Crash, just want to also say, Kurt Signetti hammering the portal. Josh Hoover gets Marsh from Michigan State. That's a big boy program, right? You're just going for the kill. We own this joint. We get the dudes. Like, that's what USC should be doing, and that's what I thought Chad Bowen was going to do. But no, Indiana's getting more dudes. Oregon's getting more dudes. So, yes, I'm in bad cop mode. All right, Crash, you have the floor.
I'm just going to say this. I'm not disagreeing with what either of you guys have saying. I've been impressed with the guys they've added. Obviously, nothing flashy, nothing high profile, no walk-off grand slams necessarily. But I'm wondering this, though. Is Lincoln Riley trying to more focus on making his roster just getting the big boys, like getting dudes in the trenches, really just stocking up in the running back room, things where you win games in the Big Ten? I'm not saying having, key receivers for Jane Mayava isn't important, because it absolutely is, but is that kind of their focus, to kind of win games in the trenches? Because that's how you win games in the Big Ten. So I want to point that out, just because, are they really looking at, like, okay, we're not in the Pac-12 anymore, we can just, gun it down the field all the time and just, win these shootouts? No, when you're in the Big Ten, you got to win games with grit, just by beating up the other guy, by being the bigger, stronger team. So especially really in the trenches. So while I'm not disagreeing, I am curious, is that where they're prioritizing their focus, and then either trying to develop the receivers they have, or maybe potential guys who maybe are more raw that they can develop and polish up in the receiver room for Jane Mayava? So I just wanted to throw that out there as, where is USC's focus right now?
Want to hit some comments and questions from the chat. Joseph Barrett, Caleb Williams was not very accurate against Green Bay, missed a lot of throws. Yes, and Caleb Williams can't wait until the fourth quarter to play well. Period. Like, the Rams are going to punish you, in ways that the Packers did not and would not. So absolutely, Caleb needs to play a complete game, and Ben Johnson needs to get through to Caleb and his team. You can't wait until the fourth quarter every week. You can't. Bears need to come out strong. They're at home again. Like, the Rams have had to commute, had to go to Charlotte, fly home. Now they go to Chicago, and they're playing in cold weather. Fun fact: when the Bears won their only Super Bowl 20, 1985 season, January 1986, their victim in the NFC Championship game was Los Angeles Rams. Dita Brock. They beat Dita in the NFC Championship game if the Bears beat the Rams at home in the playoffs again. All right, and want to hit this question from our friend Gerardo Zalata, very loyal viewer of the USC Primetime Live show here at the Voice of College Football. If Husan Longstreet does not return rescinds his portal entry, and they hire a defensive coordinator from within to keep players and recruiting continuity, the perception could be playoffs 2027. Would you give Riley an extra year if no playoffs 2026? Ethan, Crash.
I'm not gonna go hard one way or the other, but all I'm gonna say is, like, when do we stop moving the goalposts? Like, I think at some point Lincoln Riley can keep spinning this situation where it's like, look, guys, we're not really set up for winning this year. So, but look, next year, like, we're building all this great stuff. Like, just give us a break this year. Let us lose a couple of games, but next year, because, like, he can keep doing that, because I think this is very obviously, to me, a self-created situation. Like, if Husan Longstreet does not return, whose job is it to keep Husan Longstreet in the building? It's Lincoln Riley's, right? Like, we've seen. It's not a situation in the current era of college football where guys are never willing to sit on the bench for a program they believe in. They'll do it. Like, Arch Manning did it. We just talked about Dylan Raiola now doing the reverse, where he went to Nebraska and immediately played, and now he's so ready to commit to Oregon that he's willing to sit on the bench. Like, Miller Moss sat for a couple of years. Caleb Williams famously said that he would walk on with Lincoln Riley if he had to. So, it's guys will compete. And I think that we can't leave Lincoln Riley out of the equation here. I think it's possible that, he could have done more to keep Husan Longstreet around. And I think that starts with how he used him on the field. I really don't like how he used him on the field this last year. And I think that if he would have used him on the field in a little bit more of a smart way, in a way that kept him more engaged, helped him contribute to winning better, that he would be more likely to feel comfortable about his role in the program moving forward. And then again, hiring a DC from within, again, that's our fault. That's our choice. That would be, there are external options that are pretty good. And, if we end up missing on Pete Kwiatkowski, like, again, that's our fault. That's our loss. So I think that you can't like keep deflecting like, oh, well, but next year, this year we have these problems, but next year we won't have those problems. Like, who created the problems? So I think that, that to me is where, that stands. If USC is kind of nailing the 2027 recruiting class, and like we've talked about how this year is a really tough schedule for USC. Like, there are other arguments that I would be willing to consider for keeping Lincoln Riley around in 2027 if we don't make the playoffs in 2026. But like Longstreet not returning and hiring the DC from within are not ones that I think are valid, because I think that those are both Lincoln Riley created problems and him trying to move the goalpost and put a good PR spin on things that are his fault. So yeah, that's kind of my take on that.
I fully agree with Ethan, kind of everything that you said. But I really think also it's really like Lincoln Riley it was really probably, not sure when it was going to be clear, but it was kind of clear to a lot of people that Hassan Longstreet was always going to be in a use him or lose him position. And USC chose to lose him. And then same thing with Danton Lynn just leaving. I mean, last year, USC was very proactive about getting Lynn that contract extension and keeping him out of Penn and preventing Penn State from prying him away. But this year, they were not very proactive. Riley seemed pretty indifferent from how I read it. It's like, if he leaves, he leaves. Like, we hope he stays, but if he leaves, he's welcome to go. Like, that was kind of, maybe I'm being wrong, but that's the way I interpret it, as like USC was not being very proactive. Maybe it was Lincoln Riley frustrated with it. I mean, this is Ethan. I think this is something we can definitely expand on tomorrow, but I'll just say this, like, if you're going to let that guy leave because you're not happy with what him and his staff are doing, why are you even considering hiring your DC from within? That's my one question. And obviously, we've all spoken very highly of the three of us here. All are in agreement that Pete Kwiatkowski should be the next DC. So we'll definitely see kind of if this like trying to hold the staff together, as Ryan Karchi reported in the LA Times yesterday. I'm wondering, is that complicating things? Is that what's leading Kwiatkowski to be like, yeah, maybe Stanford actually doesn't sound that bad. They'll let me hire the guys I want to hire. Because that's usually how it is. And if Lincoln Riley was, a defensive-minded coach, I'd be like, all right, he knows that's his area of expertise. Like, I'll let him have more of a say. But he's not. And his defenses have been egregious at times through a lot of his tenure at USC. So when that's the case, you want someone. I'm not saying you can't just completely just hand the keys, but let them have more free will. He seemed to have no problem with Danton Lynn bringing in everyone he wanted when they hired him away from UCLA 2 years ago. So it feels like with whether it's Kwiatkowski or whoever you bring in, you got to let them hire the people they want underneath them.
All right. So really good question from our friend Gerardo Zalada. And so as we wrap up our show here, so next Tuesday, when we're here at 10 Eastern, 7 p.m. in Los Angeles and the rest of the West, here on USC Primetime Live, presented by FanDuel, we will know the national champion. We might know the USC defensive coordinator. We'll have other portal pickups to report, and we will see if it's Caleb Williams versus Sam Darnold for a spot in Super Bowl 60. So plenty of material for next week's show here on USC Primetime Live at the Voice of College Football, presented by FanDuel. So for Ethan Inman and Crash Like Collier, and again, follow their news videos. They're going to be doing lots of short 8-minute, 9-minute kinds of cuts on breaking news, other items of interest for USC fans, and those are freebies. In addition to the bonus cuts, joining as a member at the middle Heisman tier, the top national champion tier, but we're giving you more freebies as well. More of the content you crave as USC fans. So keep an eye on for Ethan, Crash, and you can see their Twitter handles, Journal Inman, Crashlet. Follow them there. So you're getting more of the USC content you crave. We'll see you next Tuesday. For Ethan, for Crash, this is Matt Zemek. Thanks for watching and listening to USC Primetime Live here at the Voice of College Football, presented by FanDuel.